If you're someone who deals with a lot of intense anxiety at times, and maybe it comes in waves, maybe it comes in phases, maybe it's not all the time, but you go through these periods of intense anxiety where you just feel really strung out and stressed out, you feel off balance, you feel like your nervous system is out of whack, and you almost feel like the anxiety has a lot to do with where you're at, who you're around, and so your company, your community of people, things of that nature. And what happens is you feel like there's these certain times where you're around people, or maybe it's like you're in a big crowd, you're at a party, you're at some kind of large event, and you step into this environment, you step into this crowd of people, and all of a sudden you start to feel the anxiety. You start to feel just completely off, and you're trying to have a good time, and people are kind of noticing that there's something off with you. They kind of know that you're not all there, and they start asking you like, "Are you okay? Like, can I get you anything? Like what's going on?" And you don't know what to say, and this is where people are like, they're trying to figure out what's going on within them. Why do they feel so off balance, and why is there so much anxiety? Why is there so much stress? Why is there maybe some fear, and just all these mixed emotions? And typically these emotions are negative. What's going on? Well, again, if you're someone who experiences this, especially on a regular basis, this could be because you are an old soul. You are a highly evolved being. And what this means is that you've been going through many incarnations, many lifetimes. You've been playing this human game of incarnating into a physical body and going around the cycles, going around the wheel of samsara, and you've come a long way. And so what happens is, as you go along the journey and as you go through many cycles of birth and death, many incarnations, what happens is the consciousness starts to expand throughout each lifetime. As you learn, as you grow, as you develop, the soul is going through many lessons, and because of this, there's expansion of consciousness, because that's ultimately what we're trying to experience in this journey of the soul's evolution, is the expansion of consciousness. And so you can think of it like this. These are kind of like the different levels of consciousness summed up. There's egoic consciousness, and then there's the ethnocentric consciousness, or tribal-centric consciousness. Then there's the world-centric consciousness. Then there's the cosmocentric consciousness. And essentially what this is the journey. It's the shift from me, which is egocentric consciousness, we, tribal-centric consciousness, everybody, world-centric consciousness, and then everything, cosmocentric consciousness. And then beyond the cosmocentric consciousness is everything and nothing. So it's this non-dual reality, Christ consciousness, unity consciousness. That's what that is. But along the journey, we start out in egocentric consciousness. And it's not that the egocentric or the tribal centric is like bad or negative. That's just the lower, earlier stages of development. And we all go through them. And so, the problem with when you start talking about things like this, people will hear highly evolved or further along the way, further along the journey, and they think that that person that's more evolved is like better than someone that's not as evolved. And that's totally inaccurate. That is not what this is. This is not a game of dualistic, oh, he's better than this person and more superior, and because this is not a game of winning and losing. It's a game that completely transcends all duality. And so you've got a tree, you're looking at the tree, there's fruit on the tree. Some fruit is ripe, some fruit isn't. And it's not a matter of, the fruit that's ripe is better than the fruit that isn't ripe. No, it's just there's different stages of development, there's different stages of the evolution of consciousness, and different souls are on different journeys, and that's just the way it is. But it's not that, this person is better or this soul's better than that soul because this is an older soul. No, so this is where the ego will come in, and the ego will try to make this a game of who's better and who's more spiritual and all this kind of stuff. But that is actually a form that is still, anyone that's still operating from that is still in the egocentric consciousness. So they may think that they're spiritual, or they may think that they're highly evolved, but if that's what they're saying and if that's how they're perceiving this whole game, this whole journey of some kind of superiority, and if the more you're evolved, the better you are, and you're better than those who are in the lower stages, then that person is coming from the ego. And so egoic consciousness, like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's part of the journey. This is where we start in throughout each cycle. And so in the egoic consciousness stage, it's all about you. And there's this great focus, there's this great importance of me and developing this mental construct of who I think I am. You know, the only way you can transcend the ego is if you develop an ego. And so developing an ego is an essential part of the journey. It's something we all go through. But what happens is eventually you start to transcend this consciousness of it's just me and the world is revolving around me and it's all about me. You move past that and you step into tribal centric or ethnocentric consciousness. And this is where it's you and your group and your community, and maybe you start playing sports and you understand the importance of a team and or a club you join, or so it's one step beyond just focusing on myself. It's focusing on the people around me, my family, my tribe, my group, my community, my team, and you learn the importance of that stage. And this is just another stepping stone. But for the first two stages, which is egocentric and ethnocentric or tribal centric, it's the same thing. The thing with these two stages is that if we stay here too long, if we're not experiencing healthy growth and development, then these two stages can become very toxic and they can become unhealthy and they can cause us to de-evolve. They can cause us to move in the opposite direction, and that's exactly what we don't want. And so if we stay there too long, or if we get trapped or stuck in these stages, then this is where we get into narcissism or group narcissism. And it's, oh, our group is the one and only group. We've got it figured out. We've got it right. You're wrong because you don't believe like us versus them mentality. That's where we get that mentality from. It's from the tribal centric consciousness at an unhealthy level. But same thing with the ego. You know, you can get stuck in this egocentric consciousness where you think that, again, it's narcissism. You think that you've got it all figured out, that your way is the best way. Everyone should believe like you, think like you, and your path is the best path, and everyone should be following your path, all these different things. That's coming from an unhealthy level of egocentric consciousness. And so an old soul, a soul that has evolved and that has moved through these stages over time, over many lifetimes, starts to move into the world-centric consciousness. And world-centric consciousness is this discovery, it's this realization that, hey, it's so much more than just me and we, it's everybody. And so this is when many souls, many beings start to understand universalism and inclusionism, and we're all one, and what I'm doing to others, I'm doing to myself. And so there's this realization of interconnectedness, and this is when people start to really slip into, or they're not slipping into it, it's a good thing, they're stepping into compassion and kindness and showing solidarity with others and love and peace and harmony. All these good things, all these good fruits start to arise when someone is evolving and stepping into the world-centric consciousness. Now, with world-centric consciousness and cosmocentric consciousness, which are the higher stages of development as far as consciousness goes, what's happening is the consciousness of a being, of a soul, is expanding tremendously from that of the early stages. And so when your consciousness starts to expand, this is what happens. You start to experience a little bit of that unity consciousness, especially in the world centric stage, which is the reality of oneness, and there is no separation. And so with this, what happens is you start to feel other people. You start to feel the energy of other beings around you, whether positive or negative. And so you start to feel the suffering and the pain and the trauma that other people are experiencing. And that's why if you're around someone, you're talking to them, they're sharing their story, maybe it's a very challenging story, a testimony that they've experienced, you can feel their pain, you can feel the suffering. And so this is just what happens when we start to expand our consciousness and we start to step into unity consciousness. We start to feel the energy of other beings. Like I said, sometimes this is a great thing because if the beings around us and the energy around us is high, it's good, it's full of love and joy and excitement and authenticity, then we feel that and we're inspired by that, we're influenced by that, and it even helps our own development. But on the other hand, we also feel the suffering, we feel the pain. And this is where the anxiety comes in because, like I said, when you're in a room with a lot of people, so maybe it's like a large crowd, you're at some kind of event or some kind of party, you've got all these different beings. And what's happening is because your consciousness has expanded so much, you're taking all that in. And this is what is causing the anxiety. This is what's causing the stress. And you just feeling like you're out of alignment or something. You know something's off. Intuitively, you know something's off because it's like an overload. It's too much for the body, for the emotional body and the mental body to handle. And so this is when the panic attack happens. This is when you start freaking out. Why? Because it's just too much to take in and you don't know what to do with it. And that's why with old souls typically like to be alone. They really enjoy their solitude. They're typically homebodies, so they love being at home. They don't really like going out. They don't really like big crowds. They don't really like events where it's just tons of people and tons of things going on and it's chaotic and it's hectic. Why? Because they know that when they're in those environments, they're gonna take in the energy of all the other beings around them. And typically this can be, depending on the environment, it can be negative energy, and it's going to be too much for the body, for the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body to take in all at once. And this causes the panic attack. This causes the person to really be stressed out. And so my point in all this is having anxiety and having these periods of intense anxiety when we are in certain situations and in certain environments and around certain people is actually not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. Although the dualistic mind will make it out to be a negative thing. No, this is actually a sign that you are evolving, that your consciousness is expanding, and you're probably in the world-centric stage or the cosmocentric stage. You're an old soul. You've been doing this for many lifetimes, and you've picked up so much wisdom and understanding, and this has come through the form of intelligence, through this expansion of consciousness. And so while it's hard to deal with the anxiety and the fear and the worry and all these mixed emotions that you're feeling, that you're taking in, what this is enabling you to do is to really be there for other people, because you can actually feel what they're going through and you can show solidarity with them. You can really express this when you're serving others, when you're trying to counsel others, when you're just trying to be a friend. You can really be present with them and you can feel and understand exactly what they're going through. And this is we could say it's the positive side of this aspect of the expansion of consciousness and feeling other people's energy and feeling what they're going through. And so that's just something to keep in mind. But I remember when I was in the whole church world, and then even when I moved away from the whole church world community and I got into more of mystical spirituality and I got into meditation, for as long as I can remember, anxiety, like when someone would experience anxiety, was always a bad thing. It was always a negative thing. So when I was in the church world, it was like, oh, anxiety is from the devil. It's demonic, and we need to pray it away. We need to do deliverance on you. You need to go to God with this anxiety and ask God to take this anxiety away. Or, like I said, even when I was stepping into more of mysticism or mystical spirituality, and I started practicing meditation and contemplative prayer, I was still approaching it from this perspective of, oh, I am meditating in order to get rid of this anxiety, in order to be more peaceful, in order to experience more joy and love and all these opposite emotions that are in contrast to anxiety or insecurity or fear or whatever the other emotions were. So that was my goal. That was my mindset. But the thing about this is that having the anxiety is simply a byproduct of this expansion of consciousness. It's not something that's demonic. It's not something that's evil. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's just what comes with living from this higher stage of consciousness. You're more evolved. You're an old soul. And so this is part of it. This is part of the journey. But the suffering that you're experiencing from feeling other people's energy is going to help in your development. So you're going to learn how to be transformed from this pain, from the suffering, from the energy that you're taking in. And it's just going to push you towards higher stages of development. So again, it's not something that I think we should necessarily be praying away, or even in meditation. I don't think we should be trying to get rid of anxiety while we're meditating. I think the whole point of meditation is to be totally present with our anxiety, to feel all the energy, whether negative or positive, that's arising within us. And as we feel it, we accept it, we heal from it, we move past it, we transcend it while we're including it. And again, this is all part of development and moving into these higher stages of consciousness. But this is just what comes with being one with everything, and then going along the journey and experiencing higher levels of awareness in this oneness, in unity consciousness. But it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good sign that you're an old soul. And through meditation, you can learn that, okay, if I'm an old soul, this means that I have a lot of inherent wisdom and knowledge that I've obtained along the way. And as you go within and as you start to trust your intuitive heart, you start to tap into this innate wisdom and this divine knowledge that you have from all the different lifetimes and all the different incarnations that you've experienced. And the thing about this inherent wisdom and knowledge that you have, that you've gained along the way, is that when you experience it in this current lifetime, wherever you are in the journey, it's going to feel not like something that you're remembering intellectually. It's going to be much more of a deep impression that you feel within the depths of your being. It's going to feel a lot more like remembrance than you're learning something new. And so as we go within and we start to get in touch with our intuitive heart, then all these things just start to come to us, just kind of out of nowhere, out of this void, out of this empty space. And as we remember, that's what awakening is all about. It's about remembering. And so when something resonates with you, the reason it resonates with you is because you realize somehow, some way, I've always known this. And the mind can't understand it. The mind will try to figure it out. The mind will try to give some kind of explanation as to why you feel the way you feel. But the truth about it is that this feeling, this impression, this resonance is beyond the mind. And as you sit with that in meditation, then whatever you need at that moment, whatever message you need at that moment, whatever lesson you need at that moment will be revealed. And it will help for your further development along the journey, and you'll be able to step into higher levels of consciousness. And that's what this whole game, that's what this whole ride is all about. So, yeah, that's just my encouragement today. If you're someone who deals with a lot of intense anxiety. Don't feel bad about it. Don't think that there's something wrong with you. Don't think that you're less spiritual, because it probably means that, like I keep saying, you're a lot more evolved than you think. You're an old soul, and you have so much more experience and knowledge and wisdom and creativity within you than you think. But you've been living in your headspace. You've been living in your analytical thinking mind, which has been preventing you from the heart space. And as you shift into the heart space, then it all starts to come back. There's this remembrance, there's this resonance. And that's why living from the intuitive heart is so important. So trust yourself, trust your heart. It will lead you along the way, and it will give you the encouragement and the assurance that you need wherever you are on the journey. Okay? So that's it for today. If you found this video helpful, informative, or insightful, please leave a thumbs up at the bottom of the screen, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.